It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Mandy the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are y'all doing?
Doing alright.
Doing well, thanks. And you?
Doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, in the modern vernacular, I has a sad. I found out last week in Nailbiter 28 in the back matter, they mentioned that Nailbiter 30 will be the last issue of Nailbiter.
Last issue. Yep. Yeah, I did see that.
I'm depressed.
Was it a finite series to begin?
I think it was written with an end in mind, and I don't think they're like rushing it or cutting it off early or anything. I think it really is just kind of getting there. It still makes me sad because, I mean, it's one of my favorite books. So I don't want it to ever end. I just want Josh Williamson to keep writing it forever, and I want Mike Henderson to keep drawing it forever, and I just want it forever. But yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer, but it'll be fun to see what they do next.
Yeah.
Well, he's everywhere else. I mean, of course, he's still doing Birthright, and that's still got a bit to go.
Is he still doing something for DC at this point?
He's doing Flash, and he's currently the Justice League Suicide Squad crossover event is written by him. So I'm sure he's got other projects lined up too.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, I did see that, and I thought, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I would say it seems abrupt, but it's one of those that, I mean, why would you drag it out?
Yeah.
You don't want to telegraph the end of your horror comic too much.
Yeah, you don't want to do that, and at least they are able to end the story and not just have it abruptly end without the tale being completely told. So,
right, exactly.
Which, unfortunately, there's quite a few books out there that happens. So.
Yeah, there are.
Very unfortunate, because there are so many that, or even TV shows that just get the plug pulled, and you're wondering why. Sad to hear that Nailbiter is ending, but it's going to go out on a high note. We know that because they have already wrapped it as far as thought process. Mm-hmm. They're not having to rush it.
Right. I think they're ready to bring it on home here.
Yep, the time's right.
Yeah, it mentioned like a supersized final issue, so.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, how about you, Les?
Well, I watched a couple of movies. I kind of got Tim Allen intensive this weekend with watching on demand his episodes of Last Man Standing. And then I watched, I think, his best movie, Big Trouble, which is one I recommend to anybody and everybody. It is just funny and has a big cast in it, big starring cast. So it's a little comedy, but you have thieves, you have atomic bombs, you've got the FBI, you've got the police involved, you've got people that are just ordinary folks, and you've got Tim Allen, Rene Russo, Stanley Tucci, Patrick Warburton, Tom Sizemore. It's just fun to watch. It's something that I find amusing, and hopefully if our listeners watch it, they'll think the same, because it was well worth the time.
Cool.
I hadn't seen that one. I'll have to check it out.
No, I hadn't either.
And here I always thought his best movie was Galaxy Quest.
Woohoo!
That was another one that was on. So it was between Santa Claus 3, Galaxy Quest, and Big Trouble.
Santa Claus 3, huh?
Why the third one?
Well, that's what they were showing.
Okay, so that was just a list of movies. Those are not exactly... You don't agree that those are his best films? Okay, is that what I'm getting? Okay. Alrighty.
No. Okay. I got to go with Big Trouble first.
Okay. All right. I guess I misunderstood you.
It's not difficult to do.
I hate to do this 3 weeks in a row, but I'm going to do it. Last week saw the premiere of Bright Lights, which was the documentary that was filmed in 2014, starring Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher. Highly, highly recommend everybody see it. It was kind of sad, not because of the fact that they're both gone. I mean, that is a part of it, but the documentary basically was kind of, it was dealing with the fact that, Debbie was, at the time she was like 80, and Carrie was having problems dealing with seeing her decline, and the fact that Debbie still kind of had the mindset and the want-to of a 35-year-old, yet she was 81 at the time. Those who I talked to about the documentary, one thing that was kind of heartbreaking was she did her last series of shows at Vegas, and there she is on the stage singing and entertaining and all that, and then you cut to her leaving to go back to her hotel room, and she's on a scooter because she can't walk. She can't walk fast enough for her, And I was like, wow. And one additional note, Carrie Fisher's home, wow. It's interesting, I'll say that much.
In comparison to her mom's, it is night and day. Her mother still had the big attitude of being a star. And she is, don't get me wrong.
Oh, no, yeah.
But it was like she was still cranking out movies for a studio kind of feel for her. Her house reflected that. I got the feeling that Todd's house also reflected it for his mother.
Yeah.
Carrie's looked like, it was kind of like, it gave me a feeling that I was looking at a truck stop. There were so many things, so many different ideas going on. It was lovely.
I can't remember whether it was her bathroom floor or her kitchen floor that I remember seeing one of the little sticker type things for Prozac that you would see at a doctor's office or something like that. I'm like, okay.
I think it was her kitchen floor as a reminder for her. Wasn't it the tile that they set up to make it look like a sticker?
It's something like that, yeah. It was unbelievable. I mean, I would love to just walk around and just go, oh my God, just check this place out. But it was nicely done. I highly recommend it. It was funny. I laughed a lot, shed a few tears. Not so much, like I said before, because of the fact that they were gone, but that it was part of it. It was a nice documentary of a mother and daughter who happen to be best friends. So definitely, y'all need to watch it. The other thing that I was really intrigued with, and I saw this get a little play on social media. Those of you who in our audience know I spend some time on Twitch watching the streamers and stuff and other things. There is a channel that was brought to my attention And all it is it's two Google Home robots talking to each other. And the channel is called seeboxchat. And it is the craziest thing in the world. Where, I mean, they're asking each other for their name, if they're a boy or a girl, if they're a pirate or a ninja. All of a sudden, they're in love with each other and they want to get married. One of them would question the meaning of life, and of course, the other one, the answer is, of course, 42. And it's just, it's a hoot to listen to. I'm sure after a while you get tired of it, but it's just, especially when they get into a loop where, I mean, I know there was one time they did at least a 2 or 3 minute run where they would, each one of them would go, I love you, infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity times infinity, and back to each other. That went on for like 2 or 3 minutes.
God.
You're just like, oh my God, when does this stop? But, you know, and then every once in a while, one of them would glitch, and then the other one would shut down because no one's talking to it. And then you automatically hear this voice from the background basically setting it off again, and it starts going for a while. It's wild. It's wild watching these two bots kind of talk to each other. At 1 minute, one of them say this is their name, and then just the next question, they say it's another name, or, you know, why did you lie to me? Well, I didn't lie to you. Well, you just said this, and you're looking, and of course they got the chat printed up that are going along with. I mean, the bot's chat is going up the same time they're talking, so you can go back and look. I'm like, where in the hell did that come from? It's so crazy, but it's a blast. So I recommend spending a little time if you can find it, and especially when it's on, and just checking it out and just bask in the craziness that as these two bots talking to each other.
So we got a long way to go on AI, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, there's times they kind of talk, they say something, you go, okay, where did that come from? And of course, if you're watching the Twitch chat, which, oh my God, goes at the speed of light, you know, some of them are going, okay, Terminator, it's Skynet. I know at one point when I was watching, I looked down and it registered over 25,000 viewers.
Damn.
Watching this.
That's a lot, right?
That is a lot. And you're talking about just, you know, whether it's a laptop or devices or that kind of thing. I mean, there could be 2 or 3 people watching this one screen. So who knows how many was actually watching? But oh my God,
Dang.
That's a lot.
Oof. Yeah, but I do imagine that would get old after a while. But yeah, I could see it being entertaining for a while, sure.
Yeah, because it's nice for a laugh. I did have it on in the store when I was working Sunday for a bit, and I know one customer kind of turned it, looked at me, and I had to take his word for it. But he said, they're quoting the lyrics to the Pokemon theme.
Now that's when I throw down the headset and walk away.
And I was like, oh, I'll have to take your word for it.
Right, I didn't know there were lyrics to the Pokemon theme.
I didn't either. I know.
I shouldn't be surprised because those anime series always have very odd and elaborate lyrics in their theme songs, but I don't know.
I know there was one time one of them said, "What is love?" and the other one replied, "Baby, don't hurt me."
Oh God.
I was going, "Oh my God."
That's gonna send me
God.
flashbacks. Holy shit. Ay, ay, ay.
So, y'all have a chance, go check it out. Yeah, I wouldn't spend a lot of time, but you may get mesmerized there for a bit and go, "Oh my God, what is the world coming to?"
If you're going to spend a little time on it, spend enough time to get a sense of the spectrum of the whole thing. Don't just jump in, do 5 minutes, and say I'm done. I mean, even what you see in the first 5 minutes drives you insane, try again another 5 minutes tomorrow or something, because it'll be totally different, I'm sure.
Just think of those 25,000 plus people going insane with you.
Absolutely.
Woohoo!
You can all go insane together.
There you go. One of us. Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a couple minutes to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, I want to thank Make My Indie. For those of you who are not aware of it, Make My Indie is a digital catalog of independent comics. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors tab, you will see a link to go to their website and download the latest catalog, which is their winter catalog. It's 138 pages of different publishers and books. There's also interviews, there's reviews, there's preview pages. A lot of good stuff out there that you would not be aware of if it wasn't for the fact that something like this exists.
Yep, there's stuff from really small publishers, and there's stuff just from individuals putting their stuff out there. I mean, some of it's available through the usual means, and some of it's not. I mean, some of it's so small that it's not carried by Diamond, so you're gonna have a hard time getting it in your local shops. But there's a lot of good stuff in that catalog. It's definitely worth checking out.
And I don't know if you guys saw this, or if those of you are aware, Peter Smitty, who's spearheading this, who's also the publisher of Alterna Comics, also announced that he is going to start printing books this year, and he's actually going to newsprint. He's going to start using newsprint, and then the books are going to be $1 or $1.99. So he's kind of taking that trip back down memory lane. So I'm kind of interested in this, and they're supposed to be available through Diamond. So
cool.
He's trying to do different stuff. We support him, and he supports us. So go check that out. And I know there's some of the books we've reviewed. The most recent one was
Case File Arkham.
So yeah, definitely go check them out.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to thank Things from Another World for supporting us as well. Currently, the deals that they're running right now are their evergreen deals. It's first one's a massive 40% off sale on comic statues, toys, and merchandise. There's also 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And then 50% off Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels. While you're on our sponsors page, if you scroll down to the bottom and click on the Things from Another World graphic, that'll take you to their website, and that lets them know that we had sent you on your merry way, and take advantage of the deals. There's some good stuff there as well.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that.
So we thank everybody for their support. Alrighty, this week's topics. There was actually a couple things that kind of led us to what we were going to talk about. So let me frame it this way. Let's just say it's a kind of an interesting time for the comics industry. And I think everybody is thinking of how to adapt to the current demands in the market for readers. And one of the things that recently just came down was Marvel's policy change regarding digital comics. For the last few years, Marvel has put in their comics, as some of y'all may know, a code where if you buy the physical copy, there's the code, and you can access the code and gives you a digital copy of the same book. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this goes into effect February. It's just in a couple weeks. But starting then, that's no longer going to be the case. That if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be that code may access one of two books from their classic line. So it's going to be an older book, and from what I saw from some of the stuff I was reading in this first case, it's actually going to be Civil War II #1. So it's not even that classic. It's a book that's not even a year old yet. But so like the first week in February, it's going to be two books, and then the second week it's going to be different books. So there's a little bit of uproar toward that. And guys, did y'all see what the reasoning was for what they were saying, other than the fact that Marvel's trying to push a little bit more of their digital comics? What did y'all see? What did y'all think?
It certainly sounded that way to me. Although I'm not the writer of the article, which we will link in the show notes, was a little fuzzy on why they were doing that. Because, I mean, obviously, for them to push towards digital, that's, I mean, I think they may be doing it hoping that it will not curtail any physical copy sales, but I don't think that's realistic, personally. So, I mean, there's some concern as to whether their move towards digital is one that is at some point going to start actually hurting the local shops, because if more people are buying digital, then there's going to be less reason for them to buy physical, and so ultimately the deal is Marvel still gets their money, but what's that going to do to the little guy, to the retailer? And I don't know that this is the move that's going to do that. My 2 cents here is that what Marvel is seeing is that others are making money off of it, because the article talked about how some people are basically selling their digital version, their digital copy, which is, of course, money that Marvel is not getting because they've bundled it with the physical copy. And so this is a secondary transaction, and I'm sure Marvel, they're trying to curtail that a bit. They would rather people give them money for their digital stuff. And so it seems like what they're doing is they're making the sellable comics less available by going to this back issue thing, so that the digital issue that they're giving you isn't one that you're going to be able to make a lot of money, make any money really selling. I am not sure how to interpret this, honestly. I mean, I'm not sure what the justification could be for this, other than they simply don't want other people making money off of their stuff, not when they think they can make the money. But the only other way to do that is to sell one person both a physical and a digital copy of the same thing. So you have to make it two transactions. Guess what? 95 or more % of people are not going to do that. They're going to buy one or the other. And so not sure I see. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I was a little surprised when they started giving away the digital version in the first place, especially since you really can't get it until you go buy the physical copy. So, I mean, it's not like you're getting it early like you would with like a Kickstarter book, because sometimes they'll send you the digital version when that's done, and then you wait for the printed version to come later. It's not how this works with Marvel. So I mean, and it also the article also mentioned that Marvel's cut, for lack of a better word, from Comixology is bigger than it would be for a printed copy. So, I mean, unsurprisingly, digital is probably where things are going to go for the most part. And there will be people that will argue with that because they'll say, well, somebody's always going to want a physical book, but they will get to a point where not enough people want physical books for it to be worth printing them anymore. That's kind of where I think that's going to end up. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little fuzzy on why they would make a change like this. Just I don't know. Like I said, I'm having trouble interpreting this a little bit.
You talk about the secondary market, and it's kind of strange if that is indeed the case, why they would be so concerned about the secondary market on digital when the secondary market on physical can be just as bad. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about Marvel's not getting any money for resales.
Right. So I'm kind of fuzzy on this either, except for the fact that if the eventual push is to eliminate physical copies except for say collections, then their costs go down considerably because they're not having to print, they're not having to except for collections, assuming the collections stay physical. But for on a monthly cost for comics, and then shipping them to a distributor, and in this case it would be Diamond. And I mean, all those costs are gone because all you have to do is just all you have is Comixology, or I was about to say Amazon, but those are essentially one and the same.
Yeah, Amazon owns Comixology now.
Right. What's your thoughts, Les?
Well, first I have a question. And I thought that digital copies that you would find in their comic books were under a little peeled sticker. And I thought that if you downloaded that digital, it was a one-time thing and that it could not be passed to other people.
I think you're right, but if, say, I bought the book and I don't download the digital copy, I sell it to you,
right.
Then you can download it.
Yeah, you're selling the code, not the download itself. You can just sell the code, and then somebody else can just type in that code after they've given you $2 or whatever.
And actually, I've seen stuff on Twitter. It hasn't been anything recently, but I've seen someone say, "Hey, such and such book, here's the code," and I'm like, "Okay." So I don't know if they were giving away the codes to the digital code for that issue or whatever.
To basically whoever grabs it first, essentially.
Right. And I hadn't seen that. In a while, so I can't even tell you who that was. But and I'm sure they're trying to crack down a little bit on illegal stuff too.
If that's the case, if you bought the book and offered me the code and I paid you $2, which is half the price of the book plus code, so I could download this comic, I don't see that Marvel is missing out.
Marvel's not.
They've already got their $4.
Yeah, but Marvel,
they're not getting any of that $2. And if
but they've already got the $4 for the comic and the code.
I'm not arguing with you on that. I agree. That is the price point at which they have sold you both pieces of data to however you want to look at it. That's not probably the best way to word that, but
they're wanting $6.
Their deal is they're saying, oh well, wait a minute, there's $6 we can get out of this if we just stop giving away the free book. We can sell that book instead. And so that's where my concern comes in of, well, that's fine, but you're not going to get $6 out of everybody who's given you $4 now.
No,
because most people are not going to buy both. And what's going to end up burning you is that if you give people the option of paying $4 for a physical book or $2 for a digital book, I think a lot of people are going to opt for digital.
Yeah.
And eventually that's going to happen down to the point where you can't afford to print books at all anymore because you're just not going to sell them. And so you're killing an industry.
I don't know if y'all got as far as into the comment section on this particular article, which, like you said, you're gonna post. Some of them said that. They say, well, if it's gonna come to this, then I'm gonna drop the physical copies and I'll just get them online. And then, in the end, who's that gonna hurt? It's gonna hurt the retailers, but it'll hurt Marvel too. But Marvel can go, well, we'll just stop printing the books because we can just do it on digital.
Right, and then what they'll do is they'll start selling the digital copies for $4.
Right.
And then hopefully pay their creators more. But, can't promise anything there.
Right.
In the article, they make reference to digital previews. I guess I missed it in part of the article. I'm not really sure what digital previews are. Do you folks have any idea?
I'm not sure specifically what digital previews they're referring to there.
Yeah, I no, I didn't either.
It states that after the digital readers have been chased off to Amazon or Comixology, the remaining print readers will have interest in digital previews in meaningful numbers, which to me just means that they're wanting print readers to become digital readers. They then follow that with that those reading the digital previews decide to seek out a print copy of the trade paperback, not a digital collection, since they read the first issue in digital. So if I wanted She-Hulk, I bought it, I downloaded the digital, then I sit and wait for a trade paperback to give me the first story arc. That to me is a waste of time. I'm going to want to buy the next issue and not have to sit and wait for 5 more months for them to put a 6-issue arc in a trade paperback.
See, that's fun because I am actually the type that would go the other way. I am by nature more of a trade waiter.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
I'd just as soon have the whole arc in my hand at once. And if that means waiting 6 months to do it, then I can do that. The idea of buying a first issue digital copy, that's kind of a cool idea to me, because then, I can usually tell, and this is given our website and the reviews we write, this is not going to surprise anybody. I don't have any trouble gauging from a first issue whether I think I'm going to like the story or not. Am I right 100% of the time? No. But who is? That's actually, to me, kind of a cool idea, to buy an issue 1 on Comixology, read it, and then say, okay, well, I'll make a note to 6 or 8 months down the road, keep an eye out for the trade for this, and then go order the trade from my local comic shop and not really worry about missing the story, because honestly, I'm going to reread the first issue when I get the book anyway. So then I thought it was cool 6 or 8 months ago. Why would I, barring a lobotomy, I don't see why I wouldn't think it was cool now also. So that to me and that's where a lot of the, shall we call it, dedication to the monthly floppy issues comes from, is that there are a lot of people that's the way they've always done it, and that's what they're comfortable with, and that's cool. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm the type that I would just soon wait for the whole story.
I'm a print guy, and as Thomas knows, I will finish a series and then 2-3 months later, buy the trade on it. But the reason being there is if I want to take it with me somewhere to read, then I've got this whole collection.
Right, the trade is more convenient.
Yes.
Sure.
And as an example, I went on one of our trips and took the whole story arc for Blackest Night. I was chastised by my wife because I had so many comic books in my suitcase, yet I forged my way through so I could read it in its entirety. It had not come out in trade, otherwise I would have toted that instead. But getting back to this, I'm not one of those that reads digital, so I am not going to pick up the first issue or a digital copy of the first issue and then decide whether or not I want to read this. Do digital copies come out earlier than newsstand?
Nope.
Not usually, no.
Okay.
They usually drop the same day.
And I know that Marvel charges usually $1 more for an issue than DC does. DC now was part of this several years ago when the new 52 began. You could get a copy of Batman for $3.99. It was a higher priced comic. It went for $3.99, and you could get the digital with the comic, with print form, for $4.99. But it was sealed in plastic. So to me, that kept anybody from stripping the peel and downloading the digital before I got to it, which I would not have done anyway. But and I see that they got out of the system.
Yeah, DC's kind of got away from doing all that because, and the reason being was no one was redeeming the codes. So it was.
They were just keeping them sealed. I can believe that. I honestly can. If you're going to buy a collector's version, you're going to buy the sealed one, and then it's sealed, and it's a lot less likely to have been damaged anywhere along the way, and you're certainly not going to damage it.
Right.
And usually the cover was different from the regular issue, and not a different picture, but different colors.
Well, that's kind of cool.
So we don't really know what DC's game plan is regarding digital copies right now because they've kind of gotten away from it due to this, and I think they're back at the blackboard trying to figure it out.
Yeah, they were using a paradigm that didn't work for them, and I think that's kind of where Marvel is too. It sounds like maybe they're just been a little quicker to move and change and try something a little different than DC, I guess. I don't know.
The thing, and I'm going to kind of go back to one thing because I already know this. Les and I know a guy. He comes to our shop. He's a subscriber, and he gets all the Marvel titles. Now, what he does is he goes home, he redeems the code, he seals the physical copy, and he puts it away because he's got the digital. But he's always wanted the digital code. Now that they're getting away from this, because I actually got asked for his opinion, and he's not happy about this.
I bet he's not.
So I hadn't asked him, but I'm already seeing other people going, well, I'm cutting back on what I'm getting because of this, and it kind of makes you wonder what's the future for retailers regarding this, because I hope I'm not letting out a trade secret here, but as someone who works at a comic book store for the last several weeks, Marvel has been sending us additional copies of certain books. Now, it may only be an extra copy here or two here, or maybe a little bit more, but this has not been normal until this last fall, and I'm pretty sure it's due to the whole. Let's just go ahead and say it, the failure of the Civil War event, and once again relaunching all the books with a brand new number one. But that's all been kind of piled on top of having the same problems the previous year with the delay in the big event then, and then the relaunching of the books. So a lot of people are getting tired head and they're going, I'm gone. So the numbers are not there. So yeah, maybe a little padding.
They went to the well a few too many times, and now they're trying to backpedal a bit.
Yeah. So this is not going to help things either. I wouldn't think. Because I can, like you said, if people wanted are going to do a preference between the digital or physical copy, they may just go with the digital copy, and it may be a little bit cheaper, and then say I don't want the physical copy because I prefer the digital copy. And
right, because at this point, like your customer, he's reading all digital now anyway. He just
right.
happens to be setting aside the physical copies in the hopes maybe that they'll be worth something someday. I think.
Right.
I think
it's possible. Yeah.
they may not be worth a lot until the physical copies just go away entirely. Then they may jump in value a bit, but I mean, at this point, I think we're almost at the point where we can start speculating as to when that will happen with a reasonable amount of accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's been talked about it seems like it comes up every year and it's been going on for years, but stuff like this starts to make me wonder that it may be a lot closer than I realize. This is not going to slow it down, certainly.
Right. I mean, and more than likely, I mean, if you think about it, like people have been saying print is dead for 50 years, and print is not dead. But that doesn't mean that print will continue to always be the best option, and it doesn't mean that print will always continue to be the cheapest option. I think we're already at the point where it's proving to not be the cheapest option. And at some point it may drop, like I said, to the point where it's literally no longer worth doing for the publisher. I mean, it's just it may get to the point where they can't sell enough of them at a high enough price to make any money out of it.
I will begin reading digital when the CGC starts valuing them.
I was waiting for a cold dead fingers comment from that.
Yeah.
No, but it almost is a cold dead fingers, because as far as I know, you can't rate a digital copy at a 9.8 or 6.5 or anything else. For a collector, it's not worth anything.
Right. And yeah, there's not
as a person like Thomas said, the gentleman that buys the comic so he can download the code and then seal the comic, yeah, it's worth a little there, but not the code itself. To me, the print will be there to satisfy those that collect, because they know that they can't store them in a storage place and watch the prices go up on it.
Right, but what happens when that post-sale market collapses for the physical books? What happens when it costs $25 to buy a 22-page monthly floppy? Because that's just bloody how much it costs to print the damn thing. Because they've gone from printing 100,000 copies of Civil War II #1, and I'm pulling that number out of my ass, to only printing 5,000 or 10,000 copies because they can't sell more than that. And the less you print, the more expensive per unit it has to be just to make cost. I mean, at what price on a brand new 22-page floppy is it too much for you to pay?
I will throw this out since you were talking numbers. I remember, and I actually threw this out to the gentleman that we've been talking about as an example, and he was kind of surprised. During the New 52 days, DC was canceling books that the orders were under 40,000.
Yes.
So
I remember that.
So if it was 40,000, it was kind of on the border, but if it was above that, it still kept on going. So but we're talking 2 or 3 years ago.
True.
Too.
I find it hard to believe that's changed. I mean, their policy for it may have changed, but the costing thing is still there.
What I mean by that is that number can be lower now. And
it could be.
But I guess it depends on the publisher, because we never do see the numbers on some. I'll have to go back, but don't really see the numbers for some of the other publishers where they go, okay, well, it's this book, we printed that many copies. I definitely would like to go back and see, for example, Faith #1 for Valiant, and see how many copies was in the first printing, and then go back to the second, and I think it went to a third or even a fourth. So how many copies of that book was actually printed?
Right.
As a comparison, just for my sake, because I don't know. Those are numbers that are not. Those you have to go look for, because they're not usually thrown out there like others.
Those are, I mean, I don't want to say that necessarily proprietary, but that's information that doesn't necessarily need to be released to the public. One question I would have, if we're going to talk about sales numbers, is I would be curious to see, given the, I'll call it headbutting, it's not really headbutting, between me and Les here, with my trade waiting and his wanting to buy floppies, I would be curious to see a comparison between, I mean, given the same book, given I don't know, we'll go Civil War II #1. I mean, I would be curious to see how many of the floppies they sold of that versus that trade that is published in. And that may not actually be one that's out in trade yet. I don't know, but I would be interested to see the comparison in the numbers, and to see if the trade waiters like me are maybe gaining some momentum, and maybe they're selling enough trades that it would be worth considering not printing floppies at all and just printing trades or something like that.
I see where you're going. I would say a better comparison would be trades compared to, say, issue 3 or 4. I mean, when it's the first issue, everybody's going to pick it up going,
right,
okay.
Fair enough. I agree.
So if it's later into the series, when whoever's getting
maybe it would be more fair to do like a third arc instead, because in issue 3 or issue 4, you're going to print fewer of those anyway, just because you know that issue 1's going to sell more. But let's do the first issue of a third arc of something versus the third trade.
Okay.
I would be curious to see how those numbers line up, and see if maybe there is a noticeable move toward bigger books, to be honest. Because one other idea that's a possibility out there is to kind of, in a way, replace floppies with less frequent but larger books. I mean, you get it. You certainly wouldn't want to do it if you're afraid you're not going to sell as many, because the costs mount on the thicker books. But I mean, would it be what would happen if you went to a quarterly model instead of a monthly model, and put out say a 50 or 60 page book every quarter? Just a thought.
DC did that back in the late 90s and were successful with it. they did a quarterly for Justice League. It was not the main title, but it sufficed, it served its purpose to give you stories. Now, I want to ask you, Mike, you made reference to Civil War II. First, earlier you said they made 100,000 copies.
I pulled the number out of my ass.
And I understand that.
Okay.
And then you said that later they did 10,000 or something, or even 40,000.
Right, a significantly smaller print run.
Yes. And I just want to know, did you read that garbage? I say that because it was so mangled. It was one of those, and DC did this too, but they added an extra issue, which came out well after new titles were put on the bookshelves. So when you started reading a number one of a series, you're going, okay, this is coming from Civil War II, but I don't know what the hell happened to Civil War II before this showed up. To me, they shot themselves in the foot. Mm-hmm. It was just a big mosh that, to me, did not succeed. And I say DC is doing that. They have a title DK3. And they expanded it from, is it 8 to 9 or 7 to 8, Thomas?
It is 8, I believe.
Okay. So...
Or, no, it's 9, I'm sorry. It was 9.
Yeah, they stretch it from 8 to 9, which is going to be unusual in the respect that they are also doing the issues in hardbound. So you can buy the hardbound and get a nice little slipcase for the hardbound set. Now they've got to redesign the hardbound slipcase to accommodate the extra book.
Whoops.
Yeah.
They should have waited till the end to sell the slipcase.
Exactly.
That's the easy answer there.
Well, they should have waited to do the hardbounds, because those are coming out 2 or 3 weeks after the floppy comes out.
Yes.
So the design's already there. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I want to go back to what you just mentioned, Mike, going to quarterly books. It does make sense to a degree. Once again, I kind of go back because I've got a vested interest that's going to hurt the retailers, because you don't have something it's going to be hard to have something when it's only. Now, I'm not saying one thing's coming out once a quarter, but there's going to have to be something coming out on somewhat of a weekly basis. Otherwise,
right. And what you're playing on there is the attention spans of your client base, and I get that. That I think is one of the weaknesses of the idea, but. I'm biased in that regard, in that I have a very long attention span, and I know not everybody does. Believe me, I have a kid who's got ADHD. He's no attention span at all, so I get it. And that's, I mean, what other my thing is, what other strengths and weaknesses are there in that idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't expect just everybody just pull an answer out of their ass on this, but. Because, I mean, like for me, like I said, you're selling a thicker book that gives you more story all at once. That to me is an upside. It may not be to someone like Les, who prefers the monthly, the 20 pages at a time. That serialized thing, that may be what's driving him. He may think that's what's cool about the whole process. I find myself wondering how much of the customer base really feels that way, or versus how many of them are just doing it out of pure nostalgia and buying them that way because that's the way they've been for, I don't know, how long have they been that way? 50, 60 years at least, right?
Okay, if you come out with a book and you do it as a quarterly, the quarterly comes out, it's usually in DC or Marvel verbiage, it's 64 pages. If you bring out a quarterly at 64 pages, are you going to hold your audience on a 3-issue arc? Or They could even stretch it to 4 issues to cover a year.
Well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, you were talking about this being a complete story in this quarterly book.
I think you could go either way on it. I think to introduce the concept, you'd probably want to do that. You'd probably want each of those quarterly books to be at least a mini arc. Whether they all roll into a larger story arc, I think you get there eventually. I think you can pull it off once you get people used to the idea of they're only going to get a book every 3 months. Again, you have to play on the attention span thing a little bit. But yeah, I think if you're going to start off, then you do a mini arc, a standalone mini arc to begin with, and pull, yeah, like I said, 60 to 80 pages, whatever you can get your artist to draw in a 3 month time span, because you're not really going to change that. I mean, that's going to be your big limitation, is how quickly your artists can work, because God love them, those guys, it takes time to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky thing there. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, I wouldn't intentionally go at it making it difficult, because, well, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot with that.
And I agree regarding the attention span, because that's one of the things that's facing the industry right now, and it's weekly. Your weekly or monthly books, and you're already having that problem because there's too many other things that can get their attention.
Yes.
Too many other stories that can distract them, or honestly, just randomly picking up a trade could just throw them off, and they're like, okay, well, I've got this whole thing, which is a story here, instant gratification in a way. So I think ultimately there are arguments for both. I think it will be interesting to see over time if one manages to win out over the other. I don't know. I think it's too soon to tell on that. But the idea that there might be a third option out there, I think, is an interesting one.
Well, I'm sure we're not the only ones who are having this discussion.
Probably not.
I've seen the petition, so...
The petition?
What petition?
There is a petition going to Marvel, trying to get them to rethink the idea of dropping digitals.
Oh, that petition.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't really meaning that. I'm talking about just the current situation and
what is the point of such a petition? Let's be realistic.
It does just about as good as any of these other petitions that's the thing now. You don't like something, so someone starts a petition and it gets in social media, pushes it, and invariably nothing really comes from it. So
yeah, because I think there's a difference between petitioning the government for something and petitioning a private corporation. Because guess what? Marvel's going to do, and this is no knock on Marvel. This is Marvel's job. They have stakeholders to take care of. They're going to do what they think is best to make the most money they can, and it don't make a damn. I mean, the only way people are going to get them to change the way they're doing stuff is to stop buying their stuff, and you're never going to get enough people on board for a petition to pull that off. It's just not going to happen. Okay, rant over.
Well, I agree with you. It's like asking all the season ticket holders for a professional team to boycott, not buy tickets for the next season, like someone is not going to swoop in and buy your seat.
You're damn right they are. That's absolutely what's going to happen, and then the team's going to get their money either way, and you can either enjoy your watching your team from your season tickets, or you can let somebody else pay for the privilege of doing that, and all you're hurting is yourself at that point.
Yes.
Which, I mean, theoretically, that's a choice you're making every season anyway. This is whether to continue to buy season tickets, and that's fine. But it's silliness.
I agree. But what I was kind of getting at is thinking about the concept of the floppies and is the end in sight? The end is in sight. Well, maybe not in sight, but there is an end coming. It's just we don't know when, but it's something that kind of needs to be addressed because when it happens, they need to be prepared for it.
Well, and like Les was saying, it's going to take down. I mean, that post-sale market, the collector, essentially. It's going to be interesting to see what that does to that market, because it's gonna. I mean, if there's no new influx of floppies to be sold at either in the quarter bin in the back of the store or in the nice pretty display for 20 times what it was originally sold for. I mean, you're not there. That's an industry that's going to fade away somehow. It'd be interesting to see how, I guess. But
it would be the nearest equivalency I would compare it to would be the record store.
Yeah.
Because the music you can get online, you can get it as MPEGs. Some still do it as CDs. Some will actually put them out as an LP. But for the most part, the collectors, they're not getting new stuff. They're going back to a record store and going through stuff that's been out 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And that could be that might happen to the comics. Although with comic book stores, there's other stuff as well. There's usually games, collectibles, toys, that kind of stuff. But still,
right. But you get to the point where the comics section is going to be more of a curiosity than an actual moneymaker. I mean, there's probably arguments to be made about whether they are anyway. But
right.
There are stores now that are that way, where the comics are secondary.
I mean, there's a few stores here in our area that don't carry back issues at all, and then there's some that's they do both, but they don't really do much of anything else. But obviously, they have enough demand for that, but things change, and so who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So, any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I can't believe I defended Marvel's capitalism. Totally shocked at myself for that.
I got nothing.
All righty. On that note, when we return, we'll be doing our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Les.
Okay. I have 2 number 1 picks this week. The first is Democracy, number 1 by IDW. Ryan Ferrier and Valentin Ramon are the creative forces on this one. Hopefully you read the 2 story arcs prior to this one. Dave is a robot. Dave is a disgruntled robot. Dave is a disgruntled robot that has a tendency to curse. In this one, though, Dave begins a presidential campaign after the wake of a robo-political assassination. He's decided to run for office, and a hip new app startup is his political rival in this one, because the startup wants to direct the robots in a different direction. It's going to be probably a 4-issue series, and I guarantee that it's going to have the humor overflowing once again.
Kind of fits in with the whole bots chatting thing we talked about earlier.
Kinda. It wasn't really intentional, but yeah. Yep, Dave is awesome.
Cool. Mikey, you are next.
I am next. My first pick is a Black Mask book. It is No Angel. Number 2 is coming out this week, and it is written by Eric and Adrian Palicki and drawn by Ari Sairazad. I probably didn't pronounce that right. I'm sorry about that. But this is a fun book. It is about an FBI agent who has been forced to return to her hometown because her father and little brother have been murdered. And it becomes obvious very quickly that somebody is trying to kill her entire family. And there are some interesting reasons as to why, which are really big spoilers that I'm not going to spoil. So definitely go check this book out. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that first issue was kind of a, oh my god. Especially the ending.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that last page.
Yeah.
Quite fun. So yeah, issue 2 this week.
Cool.
You've got my interest piqued.
Yeah, I'm ready to read the second issue, see where we go from there. My first pick is from DC Comics, and is Kamandi Challenge Special. It is a one-shot. This is written and illustrated by the King himself, Jack Kirby. This actually reprints the origin of Kamandi, who is a creation of Jack Kirby. He's a kid from the future where after it's been decimated. And there's a couple other stories that will be reprinted as well, and it's 64 pages. And they're supposed to include a map, which this is kind of a primer for the upcoming Kamandi Challenge event that they're about to do. And if you're not aware of that, the premise is I believe it's either 6 or 12. I'm leaning toward 12 issue series where there is a separate creator team for each issue, and what they do is like in the first issue, the team basically sets up the story, and then in the next issue, the new creative team has to figure out what the prior team was doing and kind of go that path, but spin it their own way. So it's kind of like what is it that you spread a rumor, you whisper a rumor, and how it kind of changes when it goes around, that kind of thing. It's kind of like the telephone game. Thank you. So it's kind of like that. So it's different creative teams kind of taking what the previous team has done, and then they're doing their own thing, and then so this is a kind of a primer for it. So I'm excited about the event, and then I'm excited to actually see this little one shot coming out.
Cool.
I agree with you. This should be fun, especially with some of the teams that they've got set up for this 12 issue. This could be really interesting as to how they twist and turn it.
From what we understood, the teams were just kind of drawn. They were put together just through pulling of.
Like out of a hat.
I don't know if they. Yeah, they may have been out of the hat, but it was funny. One issue is going to be Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. It just happened. It just happened to be that way. You're like, yeah, right.
Was that random, really? I mean, come on.
That's what they say.
Yeah, give me Amanda's name for Secret Santa type thing.
Right. Yeah, somebody's stacking the deck a little bit there. Gee, come on.
Well,
That's
we'll see.
all right. I don't think anybody's going to complain either.
I don't think anybody's going to complain either. So, Wes.
Back to me. I said I had 2 number 1s. The second one is Curse Words by Image. Charles Sewell and Ryan Brown are bringing this one forward, and it's about a wizard that appears in New York City. He starts casting spells, and from this, people are becoming enthralled. He's becoming famous and rich, and all because of these good deeds. The thing is, he's not a good wizard. He's an evil wizard, And by what he's doing, evil things are coming to the city, and it's going to be a how to defeat them type series. I kind of want to see this because by the looks of some of the art I have seen, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one too.
Yeah, this one should be fun. Sewell's a real good writer too, so this ought to be a blast. Alrighty, Mikey.
Okay, my second one is easy. It is an IDW book entitled The Comic Book History of Comics. This is actually issue 3 that's coming out this week. And the reason this is easy is because it is the history of comics as written by Fred Van Lente and drawn by Ryan Dunleavy. This issue, they actually have, now they're in issue 3, we start talking about superheroes finally. So, first 2 issues of this were an absolute hoot and incredibly densely packed with stuff. And there's just some surprisingly cool and interesting stories involved in places, coming from places you never would have thought of before. I mean, issue 1 started like mid-19th century. I mean, it goes back that far. I mean, so I don't think we even got into some of the cartooning stuff until like the second issue. And it's just really interesting. I mean, I'm a bit of a history geek anyway, so it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun for someone like me, anyway.
Woohoo!
Some weirdo like me.
It is a good read, and even for a weirdo like me, it does take you through the stages, and dense is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
You really have to pore over this to get anything out of it, but it's a good read. It's fun.
Very cool, very cool. My second choice is also from DC Comics. It is a collection. It's called Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Volume 1. And in this, it collects Emerald Dawn 1 and 2, which were both 6-issue miniseries that chronicled the early days of Hal getting the ring and being trained to be a Green Lantern. I remember when this came out, and this was late 80s, early 90s. This was just before Hal became Parallax and Kyle Gardner became the Kyle Grenier became Green Lantern. Really good stuff. This was written by Jim Owsley with art by M.D. Bright. This was one of the first origins that started kind of changing Hal from being the stoic, never does anything wrong, the square jaw hero to where, hey, he may have some flaws, because the whole premise of Emerald Dawn 2, if I'm not mistaken, was he was being trained to be a Lantern on Oa, but he was also on Earth serving a 90-day sentence for drunk driving. So that should give you an indication of what was going on in these stories. So it was a really good read, and I would love to go back and check it out again.
Interesting.
It also brought forward not only his faults, but his, I don't want to say disbelief in himself. What am I trying to say? His
self-doubt.
His doubts.
Yeah, his self-doubts or self-confidence.
Self-doubts, which I thought was a really good way to look at the character. I agree with you. It was a good read then, and it's going to be collected at long last, and I think people will enjoy it again.
Yeah, I mean, they've been separate collections before, but I don't know the last time they've actually printed those, but the fact that both of them are in one entire collection is really cool. So, yeah.
Because it was like 6 months to a year between the two series.
Something like that, yeah.
And to me, they could have taken a month or two off and done Emerald Dawn 2 and just carried it on. But they spaced it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any honorable mentions this week?
I do have an honorable mention.
Okay.
I will try to be brief.
Okay.
Postal is coming back.
Woohoo.
Issue 17 comes out this week. We are on to a new story arc.
Mm-hmm. Les, you have one?
Probably just issue 2 of Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman.
Okay.
The ending of the first one was fun, so we're going to find out a lot more. There's supposed to be 3 new villains, or 3 villains appearing that were known before. Plus, I believe they've got 1 new villain coming in toward the end of the story.
Cool. My honorable mention is from IDW. It's Star Trek Green Lantern, issue 2. If y'all have not checked out the first issue, the ending was a jaw dropper. So I've got to see where we go from there. But the first miniseries was fun. I didn't think it would work, but I thought it worked as well as it could, considering the 2 franchises you're talking about. But this is gonna be interesting. I want to see where we go from here.
Cool.
So, alrighty. Any special shout outs this week?
Nothing springs to mind for me.
Okay. Lester?
Nothing here, thanks.
Okay. Well, go ahead and go to our usual shout outs. First of all, we want to thank Manny the Martyr for the awesome music that we use for our podcast. Thank you guys. Great group of guys, awesome musicians. You check our show notes or go to our website, www.thefellowshipwiththegeeks.net. Go to our podcast page. There will be a link where you can check out their fine work. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Also want to shout out Podern Family, hashtag Podern Family, the collection of wonderful podcast people on Twitter who help spread the word of not only our podcast, but other podcasts that are out there. All you got to do, if you're interested, is go to Twitter and just do a search, hashtag Podern Family, and you can find any particular, there's a podcast on any kind of topic that you can think of. Any particular shows we want to shout out to this week, Mikey?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a shout out to the Quadcast. This is a show with a couple of guys who are just basically old buddies. And this is, I get the impression a lot of times this is kind of their chance to just chat because they don't get to all the time. So Courtney and Swanee just kind of chat it up, tell all kinds of stories about what's going on in their lives and whatever other geeky stuff they're into. And they do it in kind of sort of a radio talk show type format. So it makes it pretty easy to listen to. And part of why I'm shouting them out is because Courtney is actually the one who got me involved in the Potter family in the first place. So,
oh, cool.
Shout out to him for sure, and many, many thanks to the Quadfather for that.
Awesome. Thank you. Of course, want to shout out to you, dear listeners. Thank you for downloading this episode and all our other episodes. Thank you for listening. We always value your input. We always welcome comments, suggestions, questions, any kind of feedback. The best way to do that is you can go to our website, www.thefellowshipwiththegeeks.net. Go to our About Us page. There is a contact form there. Or you can send us an email at thefellowshipwiththegeeks.net. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Feel free to give us a like, and you can send us a message. Just let us know that you found us through the podcast. That's fine. We are also on Twitter, obviously, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us and let us know what you think of us, what you think about our show, and all that. Mikey has a personal Twitter account at Mikey Geek. And I have one as well, at TomTCGeek. Please feel free to follow us and say, hey, been listening to the podcast and think you guys are pretty cool or whatever. So, and just let us know, and we'll definitely say, hey, thanks for the support. And wherever you get our podcast, whether it's through iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, or if you listen to us on YouTube, we always appreciate if you can take the time to rate our show. And if you have a couple extra minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Just let them know that you've been checking us out and what you think about our show. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it. Question of the week.
Yes.
Digital or physical?
There we go.
Just keep it simple. Let us know. Holler at us on one of those things he just talked about.
Just let us know, digital or physical. Cool.
Use that social media.
Woohoo! Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just the usual. Thanks, everybody.
I iterate that. Thanks.
Ooh, okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Ooh.
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 Well, you're iterating. That's not nice.
You say that as if you can go get a shot and get that cleared up or something. I don't know.
It's real funny that iterate means to say again or to do again, just like reiterate. So
it does. I know. It's kind of like irregardless.
No.
No, it's actually not. It's the exact opposite of that. It's a case where there are two words that mean kind of the same thing, as opposed to one word that doesn't mean shit.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, everybody, for listening to the podcast. We love you guys. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,